Ni hao, 我是 Humphrey Hawksley, and I'm the author of Asian Waters, which I'm so excited that it's now coming out in Chinese for a much wider audience. Asian Waters has got a huge section about Taiwan and why Taiwan is important in Asia and in the world, and of course between Taiwan and China itself. I spend a lot of time looking at Taiwan, partly because my own audience in Europe and in the States aren't really that much aware of how it is and how it came about. Of course, you are, because you live here. You know, and you live under this sort of shadow of the threat from authoritarian China all the time. I happen to be in Taiwan at the moment because I've been a guest of the Foreign Ministry, and we've met some very high-ranking people that have explained to us the situation here. We met the President, President Chai. We met the Foreign Minister, the Defense Ministry, and people like that. And I've come away with a much sharper idea now that the history that's reflected in here, in that any time China wants to, it can turn that tap of interference and aggression on or turn it off again. And in my view, and I've written about this for 15 or 20 years, Taiwan is a model of the world for two reasons. It's had a hostile neighbor right up against it, but it hasn't reacted violently against that neighbor like it does in so many other places in the world, because it knows that that neighbor is more powerful than it is. The Taiwanese people have managed to work with this hostile neighbor to everybody's benefit, so that so far, touch wood or touch book, there hasn't been a war here. And Taiwan's been very clever like that. But secondly, given that situation, it has become a pioneer of a market economy, a free market economy, a developed society, and a democracy. Taiwan has shown the world that you can have a free democratic society outside of a European setting. So if anybody working in the Middle East or in Africa says, well, democracy isn't suited to Africans or isn't suited to Arabs or something, the Taiwanese can say, well, they used to say it wasn't suited to the Chinese. But here in Taiwan, you have a glowing example that it is. And that's what makes this so critical and so important to me anyway, and that's because face down against authoritarian communist China, you have democratic, successful Taiwan. And if these issues like the trade war that Trump has at the moment and the values issues we call them, isn't resolved or settled in some way, Taiwan is going to be that flashpoint. It's going to be where authoritarianism and democracy comes face to face as this envelops. I wrote about it, and I wrote about Asian Waters because it's in all our interests, and I was fascinated to find out how all that meshes together. How does Asia work? How does democracy work? How does trade work? That's why I wrote Asian Waters, and that's why I'm so excited that it's now coming out in Chinese for that much wider audience around Asia.